Hi, this is the last Sunday in November 2020, and Project Saves the World will be holding again the monthly Global Town Hall meeting. And it's already underway, and I'm explaining a new project of mine, or a new game plan for this kind of activity to bring people together. So here we go. The new thing is, it looks as if I learn how, I can have my very own television channel for peace and saving the world. Okay,
Very
from
good.
things that we want to save the world from, 6 global threats. Because I already have the channel, and apparently I can run things there 24 hours a day if I want to. And I have 140 shows from past experience, which I can put up and schedule them to go around the clock. So anybody in the world who tunes in can see the shows that we are playing on my television channel. And in between, then I can put in new things. And I'm going to have a daily half-hour talk show with people who can call in on Zoom, and I'll record it every day, but it'll also go live. So anybody in the world who wants to call in can send in questions on YouTube, and Adam, if he sees a good one, will interrupt me by putting up his hand, and I will call on him, and he'll ask the question of the person or persons I'm talking with. So we can have a real conversation about serious global issues every weekday for half an hour. So Annalie, tell us all about your project.
Well, I work with others of the United Nations non-governmental organization groups, like the religious NGOs and I happen to be a Catholic sister, so there's a group of us who are Catholic sisters and brothers and all that we call ourselves the RUN group. We run religious at the United Nations. Now, I've always challenged that name because there's so many other religious people at the United Nations, and I'm a card-carrying United Methodist woman for the second part as an ecumenical venture. And what we do quickly is during this COVID, we meet with our ambassador friends like this via Zoom, those that we've had established a relationship with, and there are just many of us. There's about 35 of us in the group from all around the world. And my particular work then is to work with Indigenous people, the First Nation people, and here and in Canada, work of trying to get rid of the papal bulls that stand beneath the doctrine of discovery, because the doctrine of discovery has destroyed Indigenous lands, Indigenous people. It's egregious. And the chief of the region, Chief Dwayne Perry, is a dear good friend, and he calls me his Catholic sister wise elder. And that's okay with me. And Chief Dwayne Perry is his name. And frankly, if it hadn't been for our Indigenous brothers and sisters, we'd probably be flying the Union Jack over this country. And we never give them credit for that. So I see someone laughing there. Are you laughing at me, brother?
It's because we're in Canada. Defend the honor of the Union Jack.
We have a tradition of flying the Union Jack. It ended.
Oh, my bad. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to insult you. Well, see, I'm learning.
Oh, you're not insulting us. I'm just amused that we could have been more linked to the United States if it were still under the Union Jack or a part of the British.
Yeah. Thank you. And I'll be more careful about talking about the Union Jack after this, but it is true. We came awfully close to belonging to England, and we're very glad we belong to ourselves. And we actually, brother, fly the maple leaf.
Oh, very good. Very good.
Are you able to see that map?
Yes.
Of the United
I can't read it, but I can see it.
Okay, well, it's got all the parts and organs and stuff of the United Nations in it. And I thought I'd put it up as a nod in the direction of the United Nations Committee.
Oh, I see. So this, with that one chart, you can you can navigate through the United Nations and know the different agencies.
That is correct. That is correct. It's a very valuable tool.
Here's Glen Anderson. Nice to see you, Glen. You want to speak? And then we'll.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I'm happy to hang out with Canadians.
Yes.
and other folks. I live in the States. I'm in Olympia, Washington, which is 60 miles south of Seattle. I got active in the 1960s in the peace movement and never stopped. I've always been in the profoundly nonviolent parts of the peace movement, multi-issue, working for peace, nonviolence, human rights, all the good stuff. And I'm happy to connect with you folks here today. I also conduct free online workshops about nonviolent grassroots organizing.
I have shared with me Odile, my partner Odile Huguenot-Haber from France.
Yeah, are you working together?
But I am mostly right now involved with the Women International League for Peace and Freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And we're working against the wall system because there is the same companies building wall in Israel and Palestine and is building wall in Texas and along the southern border there.
Oh,
and it's
good.
a system of wall because they have many camps in which they put migrants in horrible conditions.
Oh.
They have 11,000 children caught in this system of camps.
Oh,
11,000. Oh, my word.
that's
Yeah.
right.
Uh-huh. I want to introduce you, Adil, to somebody else who's working with Palestinians, and that's A.B. Weisfeld.
J'étais en France pendant le confinement. I was in France during the confinement period and 2 months prior to that as well. Not voluntarily. I was on my way to Palestine, to Nablus, the city mountain that I usually live in and work in, with the popular resistance committees there. I'm a Jewish opposition spokesperson and writer. All my books are in the back here. And I've taken on the task of rebuilding the Jewish Bund movement, which was my mother's affiliation in Warsaw, Poland, before she was made a refugee, as was my father. Both my parents are survivors of the Holocaust, and my first language, in consequence, is Yiddish. But now I speak English and French as well.
Okay.
So the Jewish Bund was the key to unlocking the impasse that is presented by the Zionist state of Israel. And the Jewish Bundism was, of course, the Jewish socialist response to the Zionist movement in 1897, when the civil rights movement that was the Bund called for national cultural autonomy for national minorities in a federal system in opposition to the nation state paradigm that was initially proposed by Hegel. That's the basis of my work, is in opposition to the nation state constitutional format that the Zionist movement has instituted in Palestine and calls itself Israel, which is not really a proper name.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that.
Lakewood, Colorado, suburb of Denver, Colorado. Primarily, I work with Rotary International, who is affiliated with the Institute for Economics and Peace, and we're making attempting to make strong inroads in communication on some peaceful techniques and but education. I have been involved very actively since 2002, when I was running around speaking anti-war at that time and studying. I've given several classes. My biggest goal is to help society understand that peace is far more practical than war, and change the culture of attitude and the belief systems. When I go around and speak in groups, I first ask, is peace possible? And I will get 3 or 4 hands out of 30 or 40. So 10% of our society believe in what we do. So one of my goals is to change the attitude of society.
Excellent. Well, you're not alone here. We've got another Rotarian. Here's Richard Denton. Richard, say hello to your partner here.
Yes, we met in Ontario, California, and you signed our Rotarians for Nuclear Ban, now Rotarians to Prevent Nuclear War. And so we're definitely working together. We had a meeting yesterday with our incoming RI president, Shekhar Metta, who's our going to be our main person next year. And he actually welcomed a discussion on nuclear weapons.
I've got two issues, both to do with nuclear. One is, of course, nuclear weapons. And I have a theory that just declaring them illegal will not do much good. But we have to get a modified treaty, keep the one we have, and do a lot of work on that. But at the same time, concentrate on the idea of simultaneous, supervised, universal nuclear disarmament. All the 9 nuclear powers should disarm at the same time, well, in stages of 10% every month, for example, simultaneously from a signal from Greenwich Observatory, for example. And it's not difficult. You just take out the plutonium core for the H1. And all arranged, prearranged, months and months to prepare it, engineers, scientists, inspectors watching it. Well, that's the thing. And without that, I don't think we'll ever get disarmament.
Well, look here. We don't have to have this fight on here because, you know, other people agree with you who believe that you have both. And
Yes,
we have,
right.
of course, in Canada, and most of you will already know about it, the Canadians for Nuclear Weapons Convention, which is an organization that collected the signatures of how many thousand, somebody can remind me.
Over 1,000.
Over 1,000 members of the Order of Canada. And they presented a petition to Parliament, which both houses of Parliament approved, that calling for Canada to take the lead in trying to promote exactly what you're suggesting. Well, maybe not exactly, I don't know the details of what you're suggesting, but it would definitely involve a convention, which is a treaty, that would ban nuclear weapons, but also specify the conditions and timetable, et cetera, for eliminating them. Peter, do you want to speak to that? And maybe you can, you and Mike find that there's no dispute there, whatever.
Yeah, right. Mike, I'm the treasurer at the Canadian Pugwash Group in Canada. Our mission was based on the Russell Einstein memo of 1957. It's a very interesting proposition you've got for the timing of the demise of nuclear weapons. They are a project of the Canadian Pugwash Group, and they're financed by Canadian Pugwash.
And just this past week, there was an excellent talk show, you know, a conference that they sponsored, and Richard Denton here, who's got his hand up, is a wonderful person to make notes. He took splendid notes about the speeches that were given there, and I bet he would share them with anybody who wants them, wouldn't you, Richard? Put your hand up.
I'd be happy to share. I agree with you that in itself, the TPNW has limited ability, but I think because it makes nuclear weapons illegal, that will also curtail the manufacture of nuclear weapons. And I think, again, what we need to do is don't bank on the bomb, which is the ICAN program. Move the money is the Alan Ware's program. World Beyond War also has a divestment program as well. And I think by working together, we can exert financial pressure on the Boeings, the Northrop Grummons, Honeywell, et cetera.
Yeah, I'm glad that we're talking about the United Nations Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. It's really a truly historic event. In the US, the news media have not mentioned it at all. It is blacked out. It is just silent about that. Politicians do not want to talk about it, but now that 50 nations, with Honduras being the 50th, have ratified it, it goes into effect 90 days after that 50th nation, which will be January 22. And every aspect of nuclear weapons becomes illegal under international law for those nations that have ratified the treaty. And that includes the production, the transfer, the storage, research, everything. Every aspect of nuclear weapons becomes illegal, but it's not binding on the nations that have not signed it, but world opinion would shift. And so the world would look upon the US and the other 8 nations that have nuclear weapons as rogue nations. And we need to mobilize world opinion and pressure all 9 nuclear nations to stop.
Yes, this on the Prohibition Treaty, it does establish an international law that these weapons in all their forms are illegal. And we are considering how in our town, as was done in Davis, California, to introduce at the local level that the city government should have no economic relation, move the money, to any of the 26 corporations that actually produce and are the nuclear weapon system. So there are 26 lawbreakers who will become, by international law, lawbreakers when this treaty comes into effect. And in our law and order local government, that's a good point to raise, that we should have no truck with these lawbreakers.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I want to say, Odile and I have to go to Extinction Rebellion is another struggle going on. It's one of the main issues that you have in the threats. So we have a vigil pretty soon we have to go to. But I wanted to put one more little pebble in our pond here. Our project, which we call the Megiddo Peace Project, began when I'm a woodworker and had the occasion to make a table. A table, what is the shape of the table for the meeting to make peace in the world? No peace without a meeting, no meeting without a table. And I made a most beautiful, inspired table to represent the transformation from the square of earth to the circle of heaven, of the coming together of the 4 directions. Most beautiful. It served for a family for a generation, and then was the opening table at the Hague Appeal for Peace in 1999 in front of 10,000 activists from every peace organization in the world. So we want to put forward that the theme in all our efforts, bring the question to the peace table, put down the gun, come to the table to talk. Mm-hmm. The symbol of the table, the meeting point of the resolution of these conflicts, should be a symbol in all our efforts, whether it's the nuclear or whether it's the struggles in our own communities. So I just wanted to put that in. We call it the Megiddo Peace Project, or it's peacetable.org. We should put that out there. It's a beautiful table, and I hope we can have further conversation about this.
I love the idea, not only of the table, but of course the whole purpose of having a website now is so that we have a virtual table for everybody in the world that can get together and share ideas wherever we live on the web. And it's called tosavetheworld.ca. That's the name of our website. Yeah. So it's a meeting place as well. And you have a physical one, and I'd love to see a picture. Next time you come, give us a picture, show us a picture.
I just put the website and you can see a picture on it.
Okay, thank you.
Just wanted to show this book.
Oh, okay.
It's a global security system, an alternative to war.
All right.
And you find this book, which is very good in listing all the alternatives to war, on the website of World Beyond War.
Excellent.
worldbeyondwar.org.
Namaste.
Namaste.
With regards to what Alan and Odile worked on, I think we have an amazing opportunity because of what Secretary General Guterres did with his call for a global ceasefire.
Yes.
That's actually what everyone wants and everyone around the world. And we can use that to our advantage to unite the whole world. And so I've been fortunate to network with women leaders from around the world. And in particular, I think that if we were to unite around the world, it could be done because women have been leading the way. It's right there in front of us. As an example, the women in India, they just rose up around the whole country to support the Muslims in the area where they took away all their constitutional rights. In Israel, the women, Arab and Jew, have been marching for 5 years. Women wage peace. In the United States, it started the Women's March on Washington. It spread around the world. And why? Because they were just against Trump? No, because there was a major feature there. It was nonviolence. No one wants violence. And there's evidence all around the world that such good things happening. And why? They use it in their rhetoric. They say, we're doing this for the children.
I think we have more men than women in this particular gathering so far, but the most feminist guy in town seems to be Andre. So if there are any women who want to speak for our gender, hello, Rose.
Yes, okay. Well, it's certainly interesting to hear that the virus of peace, if you like, or the antidote to the virus of war is spreading right now through the world. I wish I could be as optimistic. From my perspective, I'm very concerned about what's happening on the internet. I mean, one of the things I did earlier today was send out a letter to Jasmeet Singh, the leader of the NDP party here in Canada, because of a violent video game competition. He just challenged your Alexandria Cortez, a member of the House, I think, House of Representatives. Is so topical and popular. It seems that she's fundraising using first-person shooter video games, and Jasmeet Singh has decided that the battle of opponents, grisly warfare, is somehow going to achieve their joint aims, hers, AOC's, and his, for more political civility. Personally, I don't see it. Do you?
No, I don't. I agree with you. I think we could use a different metaphor.
I saw what you were referring to.
You might want to
Dyson,
follow
yeah.
up to that initiative of Jasmeet Singh's. I've got a letter circulating on the internet about it now that has been signed by about 10 people.
Ranney, R-A-N-N-E-Y.
Okay.
And I'm the author of a new book called World Peace Through Law, which argues that the missing link for abolition, which has been insufficiently appreciated by peace activists, is a need for international dispute resolution mechanisms. And I argue, as I did in a UN speech recently, as follows, that we need to abolish war, not just nuclear weapons. I think in order to abolish nuclear weapons, we will need to abolish war. We will need to abolish war, or war will abolish us. That's proposition one. Number two, that means that we need alternatives to war, obviously. And number three, if we need alternatives to war, we need international dispute resolution, which means compulsory international dispute resolution. And then the question will be, what makes it compulsory?
It's called international law, isn't it? That's should be compulsory.
Right. But the legal realists will say that international law is just so much eyewash. And I don't pretend to believe that existing international law is what's sufficient. I think what we need are all these alternatives to the standard legal mechanisms, such as arbitration and mediation, and even as a first stage, negotiation. Negotiation could have probably prevented World War I. And even mediation would solve probably 98% of all the potential conflicts in the world. Prior to World War II, even Adolf Hitler said, I just hope before invading Finland or Poland, he said, I hope some Schweinhund does not suggest mediation. And so this is the crux of the argument. Those who are interested in can, you could send me an email. My email is James T. Ranney at post.harvard.edu.
I live in the northwestern corner of the United States, and we have some islands out here that are near Canada, Canada's southwestern corner. And in, I think it was 1848 or something, sometime in the mid to late 1800s, there was a dispute that is known as the Pig War. There's an island out here called San Juan Island.
Yes.
And when it was being settled by British people and people from the States on the same island, it was not clear whether Britain, which at that time Canada was not independent yet, whether Britain or the US owned that island. And the Pig War arose when a settler, a farmer from one of those nations, had a pig that dug up some potatoes on the farm of some farmer from the other nation. And we almost had a war between the US and England because of this pig war. And it was referred to arbitration, and the leader of Germany was chosen to be arbitrating it, and he settled it as to where the line was, and the island was deemed to be a US, part of the US. I also want to mention, so yeah, it was used, arbitration and mediation stuff was used more than it is now. And Jim mentioned outlawing war, and I put a note in the chat saying that in 1928, the nations of the world did indeed outlaw war through the Kellogg-Briand Pact.
Yes.
And because nations of the world were so outraged by World War I's horrible destruction and killing that they united in the Kellogg-Briand Pact and outlawed war, but after a while nations ignored it and went back to fighting again. So we need to lift that back up again. There's a great book on it, I think might be written by David Swanson, called When the World Outlawed War, but do a web search on the Kellogg-Briand Pact. It's in the chat.
Kristine Karch?
Yeah, I'm new in this round, and I'm coming from the international network No to War, No to NATO, and I live in Germany. And I will give you some comments or expectations from Germany.
Good.
Yeah, work if you are interested.
Yeah, please.
We are working, of course, to force our government to sign the TPNW. And we have 4 federal states who agreed to sign it. And also we have a campaign for cities, and cities urge our government to sign it. And meanwhile, over 100 cities agreed to sign this treaty. And of course, there's a movement in Germany to get rid of the nuclear weapons. I think you all know that in Germany, in Büchel, there are 20 nuclear weapons, US nuclear weapons stored, and they, but the equipment to use them and the pilots are German, and we have to spend a lot of money, German money, German tax money for the fighter jets who can carry these nuclear weapons. And we planned a nationwide action day, decentralized. And meanwhile, over 60 cities agreed to make some actions, demonstrations, manifestations, and public events, and whatever is possible due to the corona rules which are existing. And I think we should be careful about the militarization, which is introduced especially into the societies under the shadow of corona. In Germany, very often the Bundeswehr is called if they need more personnel in the hospitals and also in as a social project. And on the other side, all the rules are not in a democratic way legitimized, and they are really undemocratic, and you have to pay guilty if you are not using masks, if you are going together with more than 2, 5, 10 people. Someone
Now, wait a minute.
sometimes you don't know what to do, and they are going there with militarized rules to go back.
Could I ask you, when you said, I think maybe I misunderstood. I'd like to know more. If they need personnel, if they're short of help in running hospitals or so on, you say this is militarization. Are they calling on the armed forces to come and step in and help with these jobs? Or in what sense is that militarization?
Because with this support by the army, the thinking of the army, this militaristic logic is also introduced to the work of the healthcare systems. And
how so? I don't get it. What is militaristic about it?
Maybe that you have a chief who told you to do this and only to do this and not to think about all the consequences. And you have no chance to discuss what is now useful to do. This behavior goes into the society.
Well, frankly,
the military is going to be enforcing vaccination as well in Canada. Why couldn't they bring the military in to help, to continue help people in long-term care and retirement homes? I don't know.
I hate to say that I'm a militarist, but I absolutely believe that we have to enforce the social isolation of people who are contagious or may very likely be.
I wonder if we've lost that battle already, because they can't even contact trace anymore in some countries, especially the States.
Sorry, are you speaking, Betty Jane?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. As a microbiologist and very concerned about the pandemic.
Yeah.
Supposed to test, trace, and isolate. And if they hadn't enforced that, they got down in the first wave, they got down to 100, and they opened everything up. And now we have huge numbers on our hands. Mm-hmm. And it's going to get worse before it gets better, quite frankly. Mm-hmm. And I don't think the vaccine is going to be the silver bullet they expect it to be. It's going to take time to roll it out, for one thing. And they're planning on bringing in the military to distribute it. Well, why didn't they bring in the military to test, trace, and isolate in the first place?
Okay. Go back to Kristine. I interrupted you because I didn't think I understood you, but do you think that you have a good chance, or anything like a good chance, of getting the tactical nuclear weapons out of Germany?
Oh, I think it will be a long fight. We have the stupid situation. The German Bundestag decided, I think 10 years ago, to get rid of these nuclear weapons. And it was all agreed to this. There were no vote against this decision, but no foreign minister and no chancellor really take steps to realize this question, to get the weapons rid in Germany. On the contrary, we just order new fighter jets to carry the modernized weapons from the US, and things going in this way. But we try together with the other European nuclear weapons host country, Belgium, Netherlands, Turkey, Italy, to get rid of this US weapons and build a new network. I also can post the website of this network and
Wait a minute,
make
that's
a new
interesting.
appeal.
I'm not sure I've heard of that. Now, let me make sure that I understand you.
Yes.
Some of these countries then are proposing to get rid of the American nuclear weapons, but replace them with their own. I don't think that's what you mean.
No.
Uh-huh.
All these countries try to get rid, except maybe Germany, because Germany, the Bundestag said we have to get rid, but the government and the elites and the army, they discussing to have own nuclear weapons, and they discuss to have European nuclear weapons.
Yes, I've read extensively on the United States surveillance systems in Germany. Now, to what extent do those still exist? Because it's the United States springboard into other countries going on the east side of the world.
What do you mean surveillance systems?
Surveillance systems, launching drones, launching weapons against the Middle East.
With surveillance from what? Satellites or I'm not
mostly
sure.
the Middle East through bases in Germany.
We have in Germany the US airbase Ramstein. It's the biggest US airbase outside of the United States. And this airbase is essential for the drone wars in the Middle East. Because all the signals for the drone pilot, from the drone pilots to the drones, has to go through Ramstein to this relay station. And therefore, if we get rid of the US military bases in Germany, we also there is no possibility to fight these drone wars like they did it today. But the US is still looking for alternatives, because I don't know if they don't trust Germany, that they can stay there forever, or what else, or if they need a backup. They try to build up the same relay station in Sicilia. It's called Nomuos, to have a backup if Ramstein isn't once.
You say in Sicily?
Not working.
In
Sicily, yes.
Okay.
But actually it's Ramstein, and we had also tried to get a legal cause to stop this drone war via Ramstein, and the German government really has to take care that there is no human rights violence via this airbase Ramstein. But now the highest court in Leipzig decided it's enough that the German government asked the US government if they are doing only legal actions from Ramstein, and the US always said, this is all legal. Our drone wars, why should it be illegal?
Is that what, Betty Jane, is that what you were referring to?
Well, I had read a book about the bases of the United States in Germany and how they're using it to leapfrog into the Middle East. And there are lives lost for sure. And as far as weapons of mass destruction, the states, including Bush and Cheney, had their own war against Iraq by lying to people and saying that they had weapons of mass destruction, which they didn't.
This year is Voice of Women's 60th anniversary, and the Voice of Women remains committed and holds campaigns and encourages the government to sign the treaty. We work closely with other groups, and more importantly, no to NATO, no to the purchase of billion-dollar jets, not only for the expenditures, but for the impact on the environment. And so we are feeling very optimistic because of the earlier conversation that you were having, which we've had as well, and are sending letters. In the interior where I live, in the province of BC, we have the Southern Interior Peace Coalition, and it's a group which includes the Okanagan Valley, the West and East Kootenays, and we have several peace and social justice groups. We are actually sending letters of thank you to the 50 countries that have signed on, and sending letters to those that haven't signed on, and including our own government that haven't signed the treaty. So I really appreciated the strong sense of folks on this on the meeting here about working together and also strengthening the peace movement. And that is where hope lies for the 2021. So thank you.
Okay, and I should say that you are the chair now of the Canadian Voice of Women for Peace. Is that right?
I am a co-chair with Glen Anderson.
Annalie Hedges from Harlem, USA. You know, a number of years ago, the United Nations, UNESCO, had a wonderful school in Stadtlanding, Austria. I spent a whole summer there, and it was about conflict resolution, and it was training teams that were always on airplanes on the runway to go anywhere in the world to resolve conflicts. And I'm wondering if UNESCO still has that school in Stadtlanding, Austria. It was absolutely...
No, I don't think so. I was actually on the committee that met there to write the Constitution and the first curriculum for the University of Peace there at Stadtlanding. So I was in on the ground floor right early, but about it must be 8 or 9 years ago now, they closed it down. And
I'm sorry about that.
There's anything left there at all. It was a wonderful place.
Yes, it was. It was a wonderful summer, and I learned so much.
Castle at the top of a mountain. Wonderful. No, I don't think it happens anymore. So we have to look elsewhere for our for work. But there are other organizations that do conflict resolution. I mean, one of the persons that I meet or am in touch with quite a bit is Kai Brand Jacobson, who has an organization called Patrir, P-A-T-R-I-R, which stands for something like the Peace Research Institute of Romania, and he's based in Cluj. He has a large following of, he has a large staff, and he travels around the world and does workshops and tries to help solve problems. I know every time I hear from him, he's in Mali or the Philippines or someplace else. So there are people who are doing that kind of work, and God bless them, you know.
It's apparently the paper by Doug Roach, where he discovered that the Trudeau government is no longer completely opposed to the TPNW. So I wonder if someone here knows what practical steps the Trudeau government is undertaking or planning to support in NATO the TPNW. That is my question.
I did get the feeling that the tone of their response to questions about the certainly not 100 degrees, but I don't know of any specific measures, but they do say they now understand why countries feel that many countries felt it was a necessary step. So.
And Richard, you're back. Can you elaborate on that? How maybe the Canadian government is moving a little bit, at least rhetorically and maybe in substantively, on the TPNW issue?
When you are hearing from politicians, they have to have solidarity. And so they always give the party line, whether it's our government or in representatives of NATO. But behind closed doors, then you do have discussion. And now that the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons is ratified, I think we are now starting to see that. So,
well, no, you don't. We haven't ratified it, so.
Well, Canada has not, but correct. But the 50 states, and it will become international law on the 22nd of January. So Bob Ray, who's our new ambassador to the UN, has started to signal some movement of loosening up on the rhetoric. Before, Canada was promoting the Fissile Material Cutoff Treaty, and there's been no real movement on that. And also it has been pushing, of course, the NPT and says that it has to stay in NATO. But Canada got rid of its Genie and Bomark missiles back in the 80s and stayed in NATO. Greece has sent their nuclear weapons back to the US and stayed in NATO. And so it's certainly possible for NATO countries to sign the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons and still stay in NATO. Now, if it's one of the 5 countries like Belgium, Netherlands, Germany, Italy, and Turkey, they would then need to get rid of their nuclear weapons. In terms of the other NATO countries, they would just, if they signed, then they would not participate in anything that having to do with nuclear weapons. But it's possible for them to sign. And there's the treaty has 2 processes. One is you get rid of your nuclear weapons and then sign, and the second is you sign and then work towards getting rid of your nuclear weapons or that policy. So it's certainly possible for NATO countries to sign the treaty, stay in NATO, and then work to get rid of nuclear weapons.
Thank you.
My brother has said when Trump has gone, Trudeau will liberate Mrs. Meng. He's afraid to do it until Trump has gone. We'll see what happens.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm David Stoney, and I've been away from the nuclear issue for some time. I lived for, 30 years in Augusta, Georgia, right up the road from the so-called bomb plant, which is the Santa River site where they were making plutonium, and was pretty active in anti-nuclear activities back in the 80s, really, for me. I've become more interested in climate change lately. But I just thought I'd drop in and see what y'all were talking about.
Well, I want to know what you folks are talking about in Georgia, because I keep getting about 50 emails a day saying support these 2 fellows who are running, and I'm certain I sent some money, but I don't know what more I can do to help the senators get elected, the Democratic senators, because that sounds like it's going to make the difference, a world of difference. If you get those two Democratic seats in the Senate, it's going to give the Biden a lot more chance to do some good things. Tell us how it's going. What do you think is the likely outcome?
No question about that. I've moved away from Augusta in 2002. Live in South Carolina now, right across the border, and I wish those people well. Georgia's pretty bright red, and I would be personally surprised if either of the Democratic candidates were elected. I live on the coast of South Carolina in a little fishing and shrimping village near Charleston. And in South Carolina, they call this part of South Carolina the Low Country. And the reason they call it the Low Country is because it's so close, it's not very far above sea level. And Charleston itself has finally begun to realize that they're in deep trouble with regard to uncontrolled global warming and sea level rise, not to mention fiercer storms and such as that. But for the first congressional district, we just elected a climate change denier. Now, I didn't help with that, but that's the first congressional district. Her name is Nancy Mace, and she doesn't believe in climate change. I mean, and so South Carolina is too small to be a nation, but it's about the right size to be an insane asylum.
Well, you know, that I think is one of the most crucial things that we need to talk about is the craziness, you know, this conspiracy thinking that there's a wonderful article in today's New York Times by David Brooks giving his theory about what's behind that. And I think he's mostly right, but he's certainly right in his description of the nature of this kind of mentality where they simply deny reality. But I don't think he does a good job of explaining it because it doesn't fit the numbers that I've seen on the exit polls. So I've written a letter to the New York Times correcting him. I think the odds are not very good that I'll get printed, but at any rate, I recommend those of you who have access to the Sunday Times to have a look at David Brooks's article, because I think it's so crucial to try to figure out why half the world is going insane. And that's almost the only thing I can call it is real denial of reality in a whole bunch of ways. This QAnon thing being one of them. Yes, Mike, you got your hand up again.
Yes, talk about Charleston and the tides coming up. Does anybody remember the story of King Canute? He was one of the last kings before the conquest. Anybody know? You're a historian, weren't you, Metta? No.
Yes, I do. Yes, he tried to make the sea stop.
Well, he himself didn't believe it. His courtiers told him, you know, you're such a great man that you can go onto the beach and the tide will not come up above your feet. And he said, okay, let's try it. So he went down with his throne, sat there, and the tide came up and his feet were covered up. He said, look, you see, the rest of my case. So tell this lady about King Canute, whoever you are, David.
Okay, Annalee.
Thank you.
I learned something from physicists and from Thomas Berry when he was alive and from my indigenous chief. They all teach me. And one thing I've learned is to share with you, and I invite you to always speak in positive terms. I just heard someone say, well, I don't hold out much hope for this or that or the other. Hold out a lot of hope, because speaking into the universe and the consciousness of the hopeful willing actually is alive and has power and helps to effect what you think and say. And my physicist friends taught me that. And I work with indigenous people all the time, and they really believe it, and I do too. So I'm inviting us to use that concept of putting the positive out there so that it really has force to happen.
All right, I won't argue with you, but I don't believe you. Yeah, Amy.
No, she is right.
Here it's a pretty bad situation.
In Vukovar, right?
Vukovar, I'm in Vukovar in Croatia, in Eastern Croatia. And they just started a new lockdown yesterday, which will continue until the 21st of December at least. The migrant situation is absolutely awful. Croatia has been brought in front of the European Human Rights Commission for mistreatment and for the pushbacks and for the abuse that they're doing. In Serbia, it's pretty bad. Bosnia is absolutely awful. By the way, we're coming up in these, we've already had the 25th anniversary of the end of the war in Croatia. That was the Erdut Agreement. And on the 12th of December, we're having the 25th anniversary of Dayton. Nothing has been done in terms of the psychological state of people in all of those 25 years. And by the way, I have been here for all of that time. So we're kind of freaking a little bit. We give online courses for people who want to become what we call barefoot therapists. That means that they go into their own communities and give psychological assistance under supervision. We're getting a lot more requests for that kind of thing. We got one from Georgia today, from Tbilisi. We are doing a couple of groups in Congo. We're trying to work in South Sudan. We've got a group of young Turkish psychologists. We've got a group in Würzburg in Germany of volunteers, and we're going to get a migrant group there. We're doing a little bit with volunteers, Cameroon, and we may get another group or two. So we're going slightly mad.
There's an interesting article in the, I'm not sure if it's the Saturday or the Sunday Star this weekend, about the high incidence of depression and suicide in younger people, and their feeling of hopelessness about their future. And we all all our groups seem to want to encourage young people to join our groups. And it seems to me that when we do that, then we must give them very definite things that they can do that gives them a sense of hope. Not just teach them about the horrors of nuclear weapons, but also tell them what they can do to prevent them.
3 years ago, I created the Olympia, Washington Coalition to Abolish Nuclear Weapons, and 4 of our members have been conducting online courses. We've had people all across the US. Yeah, we actually have linked up with Antioch University the last time we conducted the course.
They need to realize that education is doing something.
Say that, in fact, we are now part of Collective Intelligence, our group, which is connected to many other groups in the world. We're part of Collective Intelligence.
There is a wonderful web meeting going on every weekday from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, called Humanity Rising. And if you haven't looked into that, you really should. It's a great way, by the way, it's a great group of people, meets every day during the week, talks about issues of various issues that particularly the need for major changes in the way, in the nature of our societies and the nature of the global system, if you will.
Since February of 1987, I have been producing and hosting 1-hour TV interviews. And the most recent 3 years worth of them I posted to my blog, and I put the link in the chat here.
Isolation is a huge, huge issue. And I'm just delighted to have learned about the initiative of in the various Eastern European countries and so on. And I'm going to follow that up and basically see about implementing something like that. So
good.
Thank you.
So have a great holiday season and be courageous as we muddle through our pandemic, and we'll all, I hope, come out the other end. Bless you. Okay. Bye.
Thank you, Metta.
This conversation is one of the weekly series Talk About Saving the World, produced by Peace Magazine and Project Save the World. Please visit our website at tosavetheworld.ca, where you can sign the Platform for Survival, a list of 25 public policy proposals that, if enacted, would greatly reduce the risk of 6 global threats to humankind. Come back next week for another discussion of a serious global issue.